early morning at this Montreal law firm brings last-minute prep for a case that's unprecedented. These young activists are at the center of it, members of a group called Environnement Jeunesse, led by Catherine Gauthier. After a pep talk from lawyer Angélie Asselin, it's time to put their game face on. They are suing the federal government, arguing Ottawa isn't doing enough to tackle climate change, violating the constitutional rights of some 3.5 million young people in Quebec. Here and around the world, this is the new front line of climate action: the courts. To Catherine Gauthier, head of Environnement Jeunesse, climate change is no distant threat.
We're about 30 minutes from Montreal, and it is called Île Saint-Bernard. I like to come here to run and to see also animals. This spring, we've seen many parts of the island that are totally flooded, and it's not used to be that way. Climate change is not something that is far up north, for example, or in the global south. It's also happening right now and right where we live.
Yeah. At 29 years old, she's a veteran of environmental protests and weary of empty political promises. She wants to turn up the pressure using the law.
I think the most frustrating part of it is that now we do need to take legal action to make sure our rights are being respected. I've been involved in climate change mobilization and actions for now 15 years. If we had taken action when I was a kid, things would be much different than they are right now, and perhaps we wouldn't need legal actions to make sure our rights and our life and the life of future generation would not be at a stake right now.
Gehele vonnis beschikbaar zijn en hiermee laat ik het dan voor dit moment.
They're taking their cue from a groundbreaking court decision in the Netherlands that forced the Dutch government to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. A flurry of climate litigation followed worldwide. Similar cases are underway in Colombia, Pakistan, Ireland. The city of New York launched legal action too, aiming to force fossil fuel companies to pay their share of the costs of adapting.
They are the first ones responsible for this crisis, and they should not get away with it anymore.
My name is Kristen Casper, and I'm Senior Legal Counsel for Strategic Litigation at Greenpeace International. I'm located in Athens, British Columbia.
Greenpeace Netherlands.
At the Greenpeace office in Toronto, a global network is tracking over 1,000 climate change-related lawsuits and counting.
What we're asking the court is to order Shell to reduce its emissions. So it's really about mitigation, it's about preventing further climate breakdown.
Keith Stewart used to advise his fellow activists environmental lawsuits were lousy strategy. Not now.
The great advantage of the courts is where politicians sometimes fear to tread, the courts can blaze that path. We've seen it in so many areas around social justice, whether you're looking at women's rights, civil rights, equality in marriage. It was often the courts that kind of pushed the politicians.
Why is it happening all around the world like this right now?
Yeah. We have better science, which actually allows you to make those arguments in court, which have won before on tobacco, on lead and gasoline, on asbestos. And you also have, I think, an increasing recognition from the courts themselves that climate change poses an existential threat.
But not everyone agrees with fighting climate change in the courts.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, 8 in favor, 1 opposed. That carries.
This winter, the city of Victoria voted to explore a lawsuit against oil and gas companies to help pay for damages caused by rising sea levels and extreme storms, but couldn't convince other BC municipalities to join. Lisa Helps, the city's bike-riding mayor, further cooled on climate litigation after a scientific report released in April concluded Canada is warming twice as fast as the global average.
That was another wake-up call, and my thinking changed, and I thought, why spend time suing fossil fuel companies if the tobacco lawsuits are any indication it's going to take 20 years just to officially get to court? There are much more important things we need to do with our limited time and limited resources.
The city has since shifted gears, concentrating on local solutions, such as banning plastic bags, retrofitting buildings. And instead of a war of words and lawyers with Alberta's oil patch,
I think as Canadians, we have a responsibility to have productive dialogue rather than throwing stones and starting lawsuits. I think it's a better thing for us to do as a country.
Cost is certainly one of the drawbacks to lawsuits. Lawyers typically don't come cheap, and the wheels of justice grind slowly. But the firm representing young Quebecers took on the case pro bono. To lawyer Angélie Asselin, it's a matter of climate justice.
It is an emergency because we need to act on all fronts. The judicial front is really important, and there's no reason why Canada shouldn't be part of it.
Keith Stewart agrees. To him, lawsuits equal leverage. Greenpeace is now lobbying several Canadian cities, including Toronto, urging councillors to sue fossil fuel companies.
From the moment these court cases are filed, they start having an impact. We've seen it in the US. We've seen it in Canada, where all of a sudden companies are now putting into their reports to shareholders, oh, you're at risk of being sued for climate change. We're seeing investors take note. And they're saying, oh, actually, maybe we need to move our money into renewables because this is risky. These companies face these types of damages. We've seen what this can do to industries before.
Back in the Montreal courthouse, lawyers for the federal government aren't disputing climate science. They argue courts have no jurisdiction to dictate climate policy to government. The youth let their legal team go to work, but they're already winning media attention.
We are asking the authorization to do a class action
to make sure our rights are being protected. This issue is really an issue of our generation.
If they were to actually win the case, the court could order Ottawa to rethink climate policies, plus pay out $350 million to curb emissions.
This is a tool that I'm taking right now that I think is really powerful, but I will still continue protesting in the streets. I will still continue to change my habits. I will still continue to speak about climate change.
Quebec youth know they're in uncharted legal waters, but as the pressure for climate action grows, expect environmental rights and climate liability to be a new frontier. Duncan McHugh, CBC News, Montreal.